We left off in Leslie's story learning how her mother-in-law bolted once Leslie confronted her on about a baby boundary crossing or a violation. We also learned that her husband drags his feet whenever it comes to communicating a limit or setting a boundary with his mom. Finally, we learned that Leslie is holding out. She's waiting for her mother-in-law to acknowledge the damage, acknowledge the harm that the mother-in-law put them through, and say sorry. So I'm going to talk like if this were my family, this is what I would be looking at just to provide some insight. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this part. But I'm also going to share how I would not be waiting for an apology from a mother-in-law like this. So let's start off with my mother-in-law's reaction. So if this were my family and I brought something to my mother-in-law's attention, like a boundary violation, and she completely bolted, abandoning us, knowing very well that she was supposed to be with us for a full month, I would be like, okay, this must be a survival technique where as a little kid, she learned that when I'm really uncomfortable, I'm not safe, and the fastest way to safety is to escape. So I would look at this like not as an evil thing, but as she must have learned very young that you run. And then that's how she gets back to safety and get away from that discomfort. With my husband, if my husband could not set boundaries with his parents and really dragged his feet and avoided conversations, I'd be like, okay, I wonder when he was a little kid if he learned that keeping the peace with mom not only means I'm a good kid, but it also means I'm safe. Because dragging your feet like that and having that avoidance typically is tied with I'm not safe if mom's unhappy. So that's some insight I would be looking at pattern-wise, because you definitely see some triangulation and avoidance here. Finally, talking about the apology. The reason why I would not wait for an apology if this were my mother-in-law is because if she reacted this way, it's like not appropriate. It's a not appropriate reaction for what I was doing. I was just simply drawing attention to a boundary violation, and she abandoned me in my most vulnerable time. I would highly suspect emotional immaturity. And I've done videos on this where I do not expect an apology from them because they are not capable. They do not have the skill set. They cannot self-reflect, put themselves in your shoes. They don't have awareness. They can't sit through tough feelings. It is arrested development. It is not a choice. And I would not put my healing on back order and on the back burner, waiting for her to have some emotional growth. So if this were my mother-in-law, I would accept that I'm not going to be getting an apology, and instead I would move forward with boundaries. And that's what we're going to talk about next. What boundaries would I set, and how would I get on the same page with my husband?